From Washington, this is VOA News. Israel agrees to release Palestinian prisoners amid renewal of peace talks. Egypt says it's rethinking its relationship with Syria, and in Russia, the release of a political prisoner. I'm Marti Johnson reporting from Washington. Israel has agreed to release a limited number of Palestinian prisoners one day after the two governments agreed to head back to negotiations in hopes of settling long-standing differences. Israel's government minister made the announcement today without specific details about the number of prisoners or their identities. Last Friday, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced the plans for resumed negotiations. He spoke from Amman, Jordan, after returning from a trip to Ramallah and meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. Egypt says it will reexamine its diplomatic relations with Syria, which became strained under the government of President Mohamed Morsi, ousted earlier this month. Egypt's new Foreign Minister Nabil Fahmy said today the interim government will not wage what he called a holy war against Syria, but that Egypt supports change there and stresses the reexamination does not mean closer ties will result. Last month, Egypt closed its Damascus embassy and shut down the Syrian embassy in Cairo, citing bloodshed during more than 2 years of civil war. During his year in power, President Morsi called on Syrian President Bashar al-Assad to step down and urged the international community to impose a no-fly zone over Syria. His ruling Sunni Muslim Brotherhood movement last month joined a call by some Sunni clerics for a jihad against the Syrian government and its Shiite allies. Anti-corruption blogger Alexei Navalny is back in Moscow after being freed on bail pending an appeal of his theft conviction. Jessica Kelleher reports for VOA the opposition leader says he's ready to campaign for Moscow's upcoming mayoral election.
When 37-year-old lawyer Alexei Navalny arrived in Kirov facing theft charges, he automatically assumed he would be found guilty. The anti-corruption blogger was convicted of stealing $500,000 in 2009. Navalny maintained that he was targeted by the Kremlin because he spearheaded demonstrations against Vladimir Putin as he prepared to return to the presidency for an unprecedented third term. But in a surprising twist, after thousands took to the streets across Russia protesting, prosecutors asked he be freed on bail pending appeal. Navalny says that he's surprised. He says we understand that what has happened now is a unique thing in the Russian judicial system, and he's going to make every moment count by throwing himself into running in Moscow's mayoral race, and that he will win. Jessica Kelleher for VOA News, Moscow.
Cambodian opposition leader Sam Rainsy has begun campaigning for his party ahead of elections just one day after returning to his homeland from 4 years of self-imposed exile in France. The campaign began today with Rainsy condemning a gunshot attack on the offices of his Cambodian National Rescue Party in Phnom Penh. Tens of thousands of people lined the streets of the capital to welcome him back this week, just a little more than 1 week before the country goes to the polls. A retired U.S. Navy pilot took a commercial flight into North Korea today to search for the remains of the fellow aviator he unsuccessfully tried to rescue 63 years ago, an act for which he was awarded America's highest military honor. VOA correspondent Steve Herman flew to Pyongyang today with the Medal of Honor winner and filed this report.
88-year-old Thomas Hudner is accompanied by a small private American search team given permission by North Korean authorities to look for the remains of his friend, U.S. Navy Ensign Jesse Brown, and their F-4 Corsairs at Hagaru-ri at the foot of the Chosin Reservoir. Hudner tells VOA News he would like to bring home the body of his wingman.
Jesse Brown is entitled to every bit of help he can get, even though it's well after death.
Jesse Brown was the first African American to be trained by the U.S. Navy as an aviator. On his 20th combat mission in the Korean War, he crash-landed his jet on a near-vertical snow-covered slope on December 4, 1950. Among those hoping the belated recovery effort will succeed is Brown's widow, Daisy. Steve Herman, VOA News, Pyongyang.
Martial arts legend Bruce Lee's family led fans in a tribute to the late kung fu star on the 40th anniversary of his death. Lee's older sister, Phoebe, joined fans today in laying flowers at his statue near Victoria Harbor in Hong Kong. Lee was born in the U.S. but raised in Hong Kong, where a sign was unveiled tracing his life there. He died of brain swelling at the age of 32. Less than a week later, his most popular movie, Enter the Dragon, was released. I'm Marti Johnson, VOA News in Washington. More news, voanews.com.